Welcome to Children with Disabilities. In this content talk, we will be looking at the conditions that affect child's development and learning, and we will also be looking at the referral and eligibility process for children who are suspected to have a developmental delay or disability. The early years are crucial. Early experiences matter for all children. This is so true for children with disabilities or children who experience biological or environmental conditions that put their development and learning at risk. The earlier we can identify and intervene for those children, the more likely they are to reach their full potential. We also know that without intervention, children with disabilities or those that experience risk factors are likely to show increasingly poor outcomes. Some children who are born with developmental disabilities, such as a child with Down syndrome, other children are at a developmental risk due to difficult pregnancy, delivery, an illness, or some other factor. For some children, we just don't know why they are performing below their age level. A variety of supports and services can be put into place to support the children and their families. Regardless, any early identification is important so that the child and the family can be referred to services and eligibility for special services can be determined. Here are some developmental disabilities and disorders that you may be familiar with as a classroom teacher. These terms are sometimes used to describe children in early childhood programs who have special needs. There are several things to notice. First, some of these terms are medical diagnoses. Others are educational terms, like cognitive delay. A child does not need a medical diagnosis to be eligible for special education or early education, but some conditions do mean that the child will be eligible. Most children will need to demonstrate a significant developmental delay in order to be determined eligible. This will require some assessment and evaluation. Regardless, every child is an individual. Two children with the same diagnosis or label may have similar characteristics, but they will be very unique from each other. Children with disabilities are children first. And as we learn more about eligibility, you'll find that not every child with a delay or special need will be eligible for special education or therapeutic services. These children still need the supports that you can provide by using effective, recommended practices. Children with disabilities or delays are children first. The impact of the condition on each child's functioning will be unique, but there is likely to be an impact on family life as well as on the child's development and learning. Recall the important features of helping to make an inclusive environment. We'll highlight those in weeks to come, but in general, these are access, participation, and support. We want to help children access their full environments, that we want them to be able to participate in their full daily activities, and we want to support them. Having a child with a disability or a developmental delay can impact a family's routine and daily activities. We often hear from families that they struggle to maintain participation in certain activities such as their religious organization, family trips, or with networks of friends. These typical activities can become anything but routine as the family tries to manage schedules, appointments, specialized treatments, and children's behaviors. Sometimes families also feel isolated after receiving the diagnosis, yet we know that maintaining and growing the family's social support resources are important. On this slide, you can see how the child and their learning may be affected across developmental domains, such as communication, their ability to verbally and non-verbally communicate their needs through requesting, responding, and commenting, their play. Many disabilities may result in children lacking the understanding of appropriate play, play skills, or being able to select age-appropriate toys. Adaptive skills. These refer to things like eating, drinking, using the restroom, taking a bath, dressing oneself, brushing their teeth. We know that for many children with disabilities, they are at risk for being very selective in the types of food that they will be able to eat, and becoming toilet trained later than their peers. These things will definitely also impact their sleep cycles as well. Motor skills, social skills, and cognitive skills. Motor skills are things like walking, sitting, rolling over, crawling, etc. Many disabilities also can impact the child's ability to make eye contact, which is a social skill, or engage in back and forth games like peekaboo, or more sophisticated skills like having a conversation. Finally, for those cognitive skills, learning new skills, demonstrating thinking and understanding and processing information can be prohibited or inhibited. Disability refers to a diagnosed mental or physical condition that may be affecting a person's movement, senses, or activities. Some of the children you work with will have a diagnosed disability. Far more common will be a developmental delay. The delay is determined by observation and assessment. Some children with developmental delays may catch up to their age mates with early education and other services, but for other children the delay may be long-term. But with early education, the child will make progress and remain closer to his or her age mates. The causes of developmental delay are varied. Often the precise cause is not known, but some biological and environmental conditions place the child at increased risk, and some of the conditions can be prevented or mitigated. These are just a few conditions that may place a child at risk for developmental delay. There are both biological factors such as low birth weight, prematurity, parental drug use, and others. There are a host of environmental factors including poverty, unemployment, low parental education, and so forth. Illness or accident for the parent and for the child can be risk factors. Often these factors or conditions don't appear as a single condition. Rather, a child experiences multiple conditions or accumulated risk. Often, it can be a prolonged condition. Fortunately, these conditions or risks can be lessened when the child experiences supportive and responsive relationships with caring adults. These adults can be the parents, relatives, and of course, they can be teachers and other caregivers. Research demonstrates that early intervention and early education can make a difference for children with developmental delays, as well as for children with confirmed developmental disabilities. Now, we'll start to examine the publicly funded services and supports that are available for young children with disabilities and delays, as well as their families. We'll take a look at programs funded by IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. IDEA is important to understand as the federal law that governs how that publicly funded services are available to young children and their families. While we focus on IDEA, there are other programs that support children with special health care needs and for those who live in poverty. These services may look different depending on a family's location, needs, and their child's developmental delay or disability. Services include medical, such as ongoing visits with a feeding therapist or an optometrist. Rehabilitative services, such as regular appointments to an occupational therapist, physical therapist, and such to target motor skills such as crawling, walking, etc. Family-focused support would include something like home visits with an early intervention practitioner where the family identifies goals to target in the home. These could be things like promoting play skills or sharing resources available in the community. Home visits can be a part of Part C services or Head Start. Special education includes services from Part C or Part B services, and we will identify those as we go on in the course. Children may receive more intensive or specialized interventions through Part C or Part B. Finally, there's social and psychological supports. Families may attend support groups with other families of children with specific disabilities or to receive family counseling. Depending on the service, this may take place at a range of locations, including healthcare clinics, early intervention centers, homes, and schools. It's important to emphasize that the natural environment is so important when we are working with young children. We aim to ensure that all services are delivered in the least restrictive environment. So the LRE is also an acronym that we see a lot. So we want to deliver these in the environment where the child has the maximum capacity and include the family's home, childcare, or preschool or school when possible. Now that we've talked a little bit about children with disabilities and delays, we'll turn to the process of determining eligibility, primarily for IDEA services. Not every child who has a special need will meet the eligibility guidelines. It is the education or child development team's responsibility to provide high-quality services for every child. If the child qualifies for additional services, then we want to make sure that we take full advantage of those services and supports. IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is the major special education law in the United States. It has multiple parts. Two of those parts are important to us. Part C governs services that supports children from birth to age 3. So many of you might be familiar with a program called First Steps. First Steps would be funded through Part C. Part B governs services for children under age 3 to 21 years of age. These are similar, but they do have differences. IDEA has a specific requirement that each state sets up a child find system. The purpose of the system is to identify, locate, and evaluate all children with disabilities regardless of their severity of their disability. The purpose is to identify all children who may need special education and related services, even if the child is not yet school age. One component of Child Find is a process for screening and identification. Screening, sometimes called developmental screening, is a short performance-based assessment that determines if a child is making progress or meeting developmental benchmarks as expected. If the child is not, then the child is referred for a more complete evaluation. A variety of other programs and systems have a requirement to conduct developmental screenings, such as a quality ratings and improvement system, an element of many state early learning education systems and Head Start systems. All these screening activities are coordinated to make an efficient system that screens the whole early childhood population and reduces repetition. The purpose is to find and identify any child who might need additional help, including children who are highly mobile, homeless, or in foster care. As a result of the child's performance on the developmental screening or the observation of an interested party, the child should be referred to the school district if age 3 or older, or to a Part C agency if under age 3. Check if your state's requirements to find out the specifics of when and where to refer in your state. All of these people and agencies are primary referral sources. Parents can refer their child for additional evaluation at any time. They don't need to wait for a professional to refer their child. Sometimes people think that a child needs a medical diagnosis before they can receive special education or related services. They don't. If the child's development is a concern, then they should be referred for additional evaluation. The referral processes work similar for both Part B and Part C services. The child begins with the referral. The child is referred to the school district Child Find or Part C lead agency. The child is evaluated by a team. Teams are usually comprised of psychologists, therapists, teachers, and others. Families have input. The team analyzes the evaluation data to determine if the child meets the eligibility requirements. If the child is eligible for services, the team and parents will write the IEP. For Part C services, it will be an individual family service plan. Depending on the child's needs and age, this might be a preschool program, community program with consulting services, or home visits. That is the team that helps with the placement of the child. The child begins the program and the team reviews the plan. An IEP is reviewed every year and an IFSP is reviewed every 6 months. For children with IEPs, the team does a reevaluation every 3 years to determine continuing eligibility. Children with IFSPs will be reevaluated near their 3rd birthday to determine if they are eligible for Part B services. It's important that we support families through this process. We share information with them. We help them with Child Find or Part C coordinators to help families be guided through the process. We maintain positivity because families are stressed and they're worried. Often they're scared during this time. There's a lot of fear of the unknown for what this means for their child and their place in the world, and specifically in school. Communicate to them that an evaluation will give us useful data about what their child needs, and it will help them to qualify for special education services. And early intervention is incredibly effective in mediating the effects of a disability or delay. We know more now than we've ever known that early intervention is key. So support families in understanding that. We also have to meet families where they are. Even if someone makes a referral or shares a concern about a child's development, it's the parent's right to decide if they want to seek those services or not. Some families choose not to go through with a referral, or some might learn that their child does qualify and choose not to participate in special education services. As early educators, we must be respectful and supportive of families' wishes. Some families may simply need more time in this process. I'll be placing online at this week's sections tips for talking with parents. This little handout will help you in terms of things that you can do to review just before you have to have some difficult conversations. All states have at least one parent training and information program. The ARC, which is a parent-to-parent support resource center, has a wonderful program called Parent to Parent, where newly diagnosed families are paired with families of children with similar needs. Emotional support for parents of children with special needs, information and referrals to community resources. Parents or similar parenting experience are matched as closely. We actually have in our community many services through the University of Missouri-Kansas City Institute for Human Development. They have many resources there through their impact team to help families in crisis, or just to help families reach out and support one another. As a part of the referral process, the child will take part in an evaluation with a team of professionals. The question is to be answered: is this child eligible for IDEA services? The team must use multiple measures, multiple sources of information and data, and the team must consist of at least 2 different professionals. The team then determines if the child meets the guidelines for eligibility. Children under age 3 may be eligible if they have certain diagnoses associated with developmental delays, or if they demonstrate significant developmental delays when assessment is finished. In a few states, children will be eligible if they are considered at risk. Children 3 and older may be eligible if they fit into one of the IDEA categories, such as intellectual disability, speech and language impairment, etc. This ends the content talk on developmental disabilities and delays. Some of the questions on this week's quiz come from this content talk.